There was a report by childrensdefense.org. It's called The State of America's Children in 2023, which covers childhood poverty.
But as you learned from our earlier discussion on schools, this country cares most about our children.
Yes. I mean, we're a pro-life nation, right? So that means necessarily that we care about children.
As long as we reload them over there. If you could, we love the children just over, just a little further, just right.
I love that now you're using lingo from like my middle school and high school years. That makes me very happy. So according to this report, 11 million children live in poverty, including 1 in 7 children of color and 1 in 6 children under 5.
In the U.S., in the richest country in the world.
So, and there are among around 74 million children living in the U.S. So 11 million of them live in poverty, which is,
Had they thought of reloading to a non-poverty?
Yes. So almost half, 47% of all children living in poverty live in severe or extreme poverty, a number which rose from 4.5 million before the pandemic to 5.5 million in 2021. In particular, the South, home to 47% of children in our country who live in poverty, experiences the highest child poverty rates, with 1 in 5 children living in poverty. And this is not surprising, like some of the poorest states in the nation are, in fact, in the South, in particular the Southeast. 9 million children face hunger and food insecurity, and 4 million children live without health insurance.
As $1 trillion goes to the military.
Yeah. I should also point out that even children who have health insurance, it does not mean that they can get their care that they require, because 80% of people who went bankrupt due to medical bills had health insurance. So having health insurance doesn't mean that you're getting the care that you need.
Sent over $100 billion to Ukraine so far. As you continue to do this report, I'm just going to throw in
I think that's good.
numbers of other things we've spent money on.
I think you should.
$1 trillion for the F-35. That still doesn't work that great.
Yeah, no.
$1 million to shoot down a $12 hobby balloon. You go.
And you go. Well, so this is, I mean, a lot of it is just a bunch of numbers to throw at people. But I think the comparison that you're making is are important ones. I mean,
$1 million a year on Biden's adult diapers.
Ew. Children are actually the poorest group in America. And this is, I mean, like,
but we've covered a couple of times that they are letting them work in slaughterhouses now. So at least we have that. At least we have that.
And they point out that, of course, systemic racism is a perpetuator of child poverty. Black and brown children suffer more from poverty than their white counterparts. And just the fact that children under 5 are more poor than children over 5 is, I just like, what the fuck?
Meanwhile, under the Biden administration, food stamps are being cut.
So indigenous children are some of the poorest in the nation as well, which we've
in some areas, school lunches, free school lunches for the poor children are being cut.
Yes. And also those who can't pay to settle a school lunch bill can face jail time.
And in some areas there was shaming, where they'd get stamps on their report card and things saying they were not paying for their lunches.
Approximately 72% of children who are poor were children of color, and 2 out of 3 lived in working families, and most were in female-headed households, which also speaks to the disparity in pay for women versus men. Yeah, I mean, and also I should also point out that these labels are being used based on federal guidelines of poverty. But if you look at actually what those are, that's like, there's a lot of headroom above that is still poverty. So for instance, the threshold federally, a family of four was considered poor if their annual income fell below $27,740. I'm sorry.
Family of four.
A family of four, that basically means that you're getting about $2,000 a month for a family of four. That's not poor. That is like, this is like,
there's no way that half of that
caricature of slums poor. Like,
and there's no way that half of that isn't going to rent. So basically, you're left with $1,000 to try to afford everything in life for four people.
And you're only considered eligible for public benefits if your annual income falls below, as a family of four, $26,500. As a family of four, like, are people surprised that 10-year-olds are working at fucking McDonald's? How many single people can make ends meet with $26,000 a year? That's fucking insane. Like, and so these are, even with these numbers, 11 million children live in poverty. If you actually put this at a level that fucking made sense for any brain that understands basic math, how many kids would we actually know are living in poverty if you put that at a reasonable amount for what it actually is to be poor?
3 men have the same amount of wealth as the bottom 50% of America. You go. No, and something else, I've been mentioning the numbers about how much we spend on these other egregious things, and I only got to do a few of them, but as we let children starve around the country, as we allow children to live in gut-wrenching poverty, in often horrible living conditions, and not only is there that where it's like, well, let's take a tiny percentage of the Pentagon money and give it to poor children or poor families. So there's that idea. But then beyond that, the U.S. can literally print as much money as we want at the moment. Now, I'm not saying this is the way the world should work, but it's the way it does work right now, where because of the petrodollar, the U.S. we increased the monetary supply of the U.S. by 20% just during the pandemic. We sent trillions of dollars to Wall Street. We print this money. Now, it's not really printed because it's not actually paper anymore. It's just ones and zeros on a computer screen. So it's literally, they can push a button in a computer and have money for all this shit. But they're not going to, because this is an incredibly rich cabal of individuals that run this shit. And their goal is to find ways to siphon money to the rich. And that is the only consideration. There is no consideration for the poor. There's no consideration for people that aren't getting education or what their life is going to be like or any of that shit. It is meaningless to them. And they run the entire government now, both corporate parties. And they're like, honestly, like, even just the words, like, how often do you see even Biden talk about poor children? So yes, the words are bullshit, but they're even phasing out the words. Like, even that is too much.
And I'll wrap this up because there's so much information here, and I would recommend, if people are interested, go to childrensdefense.org, and you can find this report. And there's information on everything from homeless children to access to food, or really lack thereof. But I did want to share something that could be replicated with a lot more money across the United States. More Perfect Union shared a few days ago a pilot program in Michigan to give every pregnant person a $1,500 one-time payment plus $500 a month for the first year of their child's life. The program will be tested starting in January in Flint, Michigan, where the childhood poverty rate is 50%. 50 fucking percent. Also, as you might have remembered, Flint doesn't have fucking clean water. So the program has funding for about 3 years and will provide families in Flint with direct cash assistance to help alleviate the symptoms of poverty. So this kind of shit could be replicated all across the United States. And I could say, again, for a lot more money. I mean, $1,500 one time plus $500 a month, that's something. But let's be honest, it's not a lot, especially for a new parent. This is the kind of shit that needs to be done all over the fucking place. Universal basic income, making sure that kids have basic needs met. I mean, fucking food. Why the fuck are there hungry children in the richest fucking nation that the world has ever seen? Holy shit.
Absolutely. And these, like, even just doing something like that, it's basically an acknowledgement that our system no longer helps people live, helps them get by, helps them deal with having a kid or having struggles. And so, yes, this would be better than nothing. Give them some money so that they can try and get by when they've had a kid. But it really does speak to the fact that it's a collapsing society. Like the systems, the safety nets are not there, and you know.
And the next time some motherfucker says that they are pro-life because they want to force a woman to be a broodmare for the state, you just fucking show them this little graph. Print it out, carry it around in your pocket.
Well, once the kid's out of the woman, it doesn't matter anymore.
That's my point.